What if I told you that one of Hollywood's toughest faces was, before being an actor, a real warrior, not because of what he did on screen, but because of what he did when no one was watching? The lonely early morning workouts, the hidden injuries, the daily inner battles. A man with a degree in chemical engineering who chose to break bones in the dojo instead of mixing formulas in a lab. This is the untold story of Dolph Lundgren, and what you're about to discover will forever change the way you see him. Martial might, where warriors live forever. He was born in Sweden in 1957, the second of 4 siblings. As a child, he was fragile, sickly, and humiliated by his own father. Not the type of boy you'd imagine training to become a fighting machine. His father was a cold, demanding man with little room for empathy. An engineer and officer in the Swedish army who had a clear view of what being a real man meant. Every weakness Dolph showed was treated as shameful. And yes, words hurt. But what hurt more were the silences, the looks of disappointment, the heavy air of not being enough. The future warrior's childhood was marked by punishment, pressure, and a constant feeling of inadequacy, until at 13, he was taken out of his home. He went to live with his grandparents, and there, far from the yelling and broken expectations, he found something that would change his destiny forever, a chance to start over. He first tried judo, then goju-ryu, but it was when he discovered Kyokushin Karate that something deep, almost ancestral, called to him. It wasn't just about punches and kicks. It was something more, a way of life, a path of discipline, sacrifice, complete control over the body and the mind. Kyokushin doesn't give medals for participation. It gives scars for merit. And for the first time, Dolph found meaning in those scars, a way to transform the pain he had carried since childhood into strength. Under the guidance of Master Brian Fitkin, a veteran of the style, he began brutal training. He wasn't an actor pretending to feel pain. He was a young man who bled for real in every session. Hours of repetition, edge-of-death sparring, knuckle push-ups, kicks until his legs went numb. That's where his character was forged, where he learned that giving up was not an option. And no, it wasn't easy. He had to combine it with his university studies, slept little, ate modestly, but he had found something worth waking up for every morning. By the age of 22, he was competing nationally, and although his first fights were rough, including defeats, he never backed down. In 1979, he won the Swedish National Championship, and from there, his name began to cross borders. Can you imagine entering a world tournament with a green belt and borrowing a brown one just to be allowed to compete? That's exactly what he's said to have done. There are no official records to confirm it, but the story has been told by multiple sources close to those tournaments, a symbol of his boldness, of someone who didn't seek titles, but real combat. As captain of the Swedish team, he entered Tokyo to face the world's best. And he didn't just compete. He knocked out his early opponents with brutal precision. His knees, his kicks, made even the Japanese audience, the most demanding on earth in this art, rise to their feet in applause. Then came the ultimate test, Makoto Nakamura, the favorite, the champion. And Lundgren faced him as if his life depended on it. 3 rounds, 2 extensions, a controversial final decision in favor of the Japanese fighter. But even so, everyone knew that Nakamura's toughest match wasn't the final. It was against that Swedish guy whose name no one knew, but whose strength no one forgot. It was a moment that cemented his legend, the foreigner who made the champion tremble in his own homeland. In 1980, he was crowned British Open champion in the heavyweight division. That same year, he earned his first Dan, But what's curious is that while becoming a legend on the tatami, he was also pursuing an academic path. He studied chemical engineering at the Royal Institute of Technology in Sweden, one of the country's most prestigious universities. Later, he moved to Australia on a Fulbright scholarship. There, he won the national championship, founded a dojo, and lived as if he had more hours in the day than other mortals. He was the kind of person who trained before sunrise and studied chemical formulas at night, until one day, something pushed him to go further. New York, theater, acting. Many thought he was throwing his life away. But to him, something about acting drew him in. A desire to express what he had been silent about for years. The bottled-up emotions, the contained rage, the inner struggle of a man who had lived with pain. In 1985, he was cast as Ivan Drago in Rocky IV. And they didn't choose him because he was the most handsome. They chose him because he commanded real respect, because he had the physique of a Norse god, but the eyes of someone who had known suffering. During filming, he trained as if it were a real fight, and a bad punch sent Sylvester Stallone to the hospital. That wasn't a Hollywood anecdote. It was a reminder that Lundgren didn't play pretend. He knew what real fighting was. Over the years, his acting career exploded. Over 80 films, action heroes, ruthless villains, but he never abandoned karate. Amid movies, red carpets, and million-dollar contracts, he kept training, returned to Sweden every year, joined training camps, taught newcomers, shared without ego, because he knew that in the dojo, there are no cameras. Only truth. In 1998, he undertook a brutal test, the exam for third dan. 20 consecutive fights, 20 men trying to take him down. They couldn't. The world saw him as an action hero, but he never felt comfortable with that label. He saw himself as a martial artist, a warrior, a lifelong student of the way. And like every warrior, he also faced battles outside the tatami. In 2009, his home was broken into, but the intruders fled when they recognized him, not out of fear of his fame, but because they saw in his eyes. He wasn't a helpless actor. He was a man trained to defend himself. Years later, a hip surgery threatened to end it all, but he came back, slower, yes, but wiser. In 2020, his master Brian Fitkin awarded him the 4th Dan, not for being famous, but for being constant, for never quitting, for staying the course. He wrote the foreword for Kyokushin's most important book, Budo Karate, by Mazo Yama, because he understood that karate isn't measured in wins, but in legacy. Then, in 2024, something happened that defined him even more. He received a Hall of Fame award on behalf of a missing master. He wasn't honored as a movie star, but as a student, a disciple, a true practitioner. He bowed, spoke humbly, and remembered what matters most, that true art isn't shouted, it's lived. Dolph Lundgren isn't just the man who fought Rocky. He's the boy who stood up when everything was against him, the student who shone in a foreign land, the engineer who could have been a scientist, but chose to be a warrior, the actor who didn't need a script to prove who he was. In every punch, every fall, every comeback, he left behind a lesson that strength isn't imposed, it's built, that discipline isn't faked, it's trained, and that true success isn't in what you achieve, but in what you overcome. So if you ever doubt yourself, remember this: even the strongest started out weak. Even those who rule the world were once scared kids. A kid with glasses, allergies, and scars on his soul. And if he made it, so can you.